King Charles III has passed away peacefully this morning at Windsor Castle. These words appeared on screens across the world in March 2024. Within minutes, millions believed Britain's king was dead. Social media exploded. News outlets panicked. The hashtag King Charles was trending everywhere. But there was one massive problem. The king was completely alive. This wasn't some random internet joke. This was a planned attack that tricked major news companies, scared royal fans worldwide, and showed how easily lies can look like truth in our digital world. The fake announcement looked totally real. It had real symbols. It used the exact words you'd expect from such terrible news, and it came at the worst possible time, when everyone was already worried about the king's cancer. But how did millions of people believe a complete lie? Who was behind this trick? And what does this tell us about the information war happening right now? Imagine this moment. You're looking at your phone on a Monday evening in March 2024, and suddenly your screen fills with terrible news. Screenshots of what look like an official palace statement are everywhere. The announcement looks completely real. Royal symbols, formal palace words, that unmistakable tone of deep sadness. His Majesty, King Charles III, passed away peacefully this morning following problems from his recent treatment, the statement said. Your heart races. You feel that familiar shock. The same feeling that hit when Queen Elizabeth's death was announced just 18 months before. But something feels different about this moment. Something that makes you pause before sharing. Because King Charles, now 75, had indeed been fighting cancer since his diagnosis became public just 1 month earlier. The whole nation was already nervous, watching every royal appearance, studying every photo for signs of the king's health. The timing felt tragically real. Within minutes, the hashtag King Charles was trending worldwide. Major Russian news outlets were already publishing big stories. Big news websites were picking up the reports. Social media feeds became rivers of grief, shock, and tribute to a king who had waited 73 years for the throne only to lose it so soon. Buckingham Palace found itself in an incredible situation. They had to deny claims that their king was dead. Think about that for a moment. The royal household, which works with centuries of rules and careful responses, suddenly had to issue what was basically a proof of life statement about the king. But here's where our story takes its first shocking turn, because this wasn't an accident. This wasn't a case of mistaken identity or someone on social media getting carried away. This was something planned, organized, and deeply disturbing. To understand how millions of people could get swept up in this lie so quickly, we need to go back to February the 5th, 2024, a date that would change everything. That's when Buckingham Palace delivered news that shocked Britain and the Commonwealth. King Charles had been diagnosed with cancer. The announcement was careful and measured, as royal communications always are. But beneath those carefully chosen words was a devastating reality. Here was a king who had waited 73 years to take the throne, only to face a life-threatening illness just 18 months into his reign. You could feel the nation holding its breath. Everyone remembered his mother's final years. Queen Elizabeth II had kept working almost until her death in September 2022, and many wondered if Charles would follow the same brave path. But this was different. Charles was younger when he became king than his mother had been when she died. People expected he'd have years, maybe decades, to make his mark on the monarchy. Cancer changed everything. The diagnosis came after what should have been a routine procedure. Charles had gone into hospital for an enlarged prostate operation, something thousands of men his age face every year. But during his procedure, doctors discovered something far more serious. The cancer diagnosis hit like a thunderbolt, not just for the royal family, but for a nation that had barely adjusted to having a new king. Palace insiders described the days following the announcement as some of the most tense in recent royal history. Staff members whispered in corridors about what this meant for the future of the monarchy. Would Charles abdicate? Would William be forced to take the throne earlier than expected? The uncertainty was eating away at everyone inside the palace walls. What made the situation even more precarious was Charles's approach to his illness. Unlike some cancer patients who withdrew from public life, the king was determined to continue his duties wherever possible. He attended meetings, signed documents, and tried to maintain as normal as a schedule as his treatment would allow. But this brave facade couldn't hide the obvious truth. He was seriously ill. In the weeks after his diagnosis, the king's public appearances became rare and precious. Royal watchers studied every photo, every brief appearance, looking for clues about his condition. Was he getting better? Worse? The palace's policy of quiet discretion created an information gap, and gaps get filled. Royal correspondents began analysing everything. They looked at his skin colour of his photographs. They counted how many steps he took without assistance. They measured the length of his public appearances. Every detail became a clue in the desperate search for answers about their king's health. This shared anxiety, this nation breath-holding, created the perfect conditions for what was about to happen. But there was another layer to this story, one that most people scrolling through their feeds had no idea about. The timing of Charles's illness couldn't have been worse from a security perspective. Political tensions between Russia and the West had reached dangerous levels. The ongoing war in Ukraine had turned information welfare from a theory into a daily reality. Western leaders have become targets in a different kind of battlefield, not one fought with bullets and bombs, but with computers and fake news. Intelligence services across the West have been tracking an increase in disinformation campaigns targeting political leaders. The strategy was simple, but effective. Create chaos and uncertainty by spreading lies about the health, stability, or legitimacy of democratic leaders. Charles, as both a monarch and a symbol of Western values, was a perfect target. Russian state media had grown bold in their willingness to publish false claims about Western leaders, often with weak disclaimers that fooled no one. They'd learned that in the digital age, a lie could travel around the world while the truth was still getting started. What's particularly chilling is how they chose their moment. They didn't attack when Charles was healthy and strong. They waited until he was vulnerable, when the public was already worried, when their lie would seem believable. It was psychological warfare at its most sophisticated, and they are about to prove it with devastating results. The moment of truth didn't come with a grand revelation, but with a simple observation by sharp-eyed social media users. The official Buckingham Palace statement that had fooled millions contained subtle but crucial errors, formatting mistakes, slight differences in fonts, and most tellingly, digital fingerprints that revealed its true origins. The royal family had released no information about the king's death. The statement was fake, created using advanced digital tools that could copy official palace communications with frightening accuracy. But here's what makes this story truly remarkable. The hoax didn't come from some anonymous internet user or conspiracy theorist. Major state outlets in Russia spread the fake news to millions of followers. This was an organized effort by Russian media organizations to spread lies about a Western head of state. The pattern became clear once investigators began following the digital trail. The fake announcement appeared first on Russian social media channels, was quickly picked up by state media outlets, and then exploded across international platforms. Each step in the chain added a layer of believability. If major news organizations were reporting it, surely it must be true. What's particularly scary is how the campaign used real concerns about King Charles's health. The timing wasn't random. It came during a period when the king had indeed reduced his public appearances due to his cancer treatment. The disinformation campaign weaponized public worry, turning legitimate concern into a vehicle for spreading lies. News sources later confirmed the king was continuing to perform his duties as planned, but by then, the damage was already done. The lie had traveled around the world while the truth was still putting on its shoes. The response from Buckingham Palace was swift but revealing in its very necessity. For the first time in recent memory, the royal household found itself having to issue what amounted to a proof-of-life statement about the reigning king. After reports surfaced in Russian media claiming King Charles III died, Buckingham Palace issued a statement denying rumours about the king. But the palace's response was just the beginning. UK embassies were forced to confirm King Charles was alive after fake Russian media reports. Think about that for a moment. British diplomatic missions around the world had to stop their regular work to fight a disinformation campaign targeting their head of state. The scramble behind the scenes was intense. Palace communications staff, who normally dealt with managing positive news about royal engagements and charitable work, suddenly found themselves in crisis mode. They had to coordinate with social media platforms, news organizations, and government departments to combat the spread of false information. What made the situation even more challenging was the global nature of the lie. The fake news wasn't just spreading in English, it had been translated into dozens of languages and was circulating on social media platforms across the world. Palace staff found themselves working with international partners to debunk the same lie in multiple countries simultaneously. The king himself seemed to understand how serious the situation was. King Charles is alive and well despite what some Russian propaganda might have some believe in, proven by the fact he was photographed out and about. Just hours after the hoax reached its peak, he made a point of being photographed photographed leaving Windsor Castle, a subtle but powerful visual response to the false reports. The image was carefully chosen. Charles looked healthy, alert, and very much alive. He was walking without assistance, smiling slightly, and appeared to be in good spirits. It was a masterclass in visual communication. Sometimes actions speak louder than words, and this photograph spoke volumes. Perhaps most tellingly, King Charles III was photographed hosting a meeting with veterans at Buckingham Palace to mark the 70th anniversary of the Korean War, carrying on with his royal duties as if to show that reports of his death had been greatly exaggerated. The international reaction was equally significant. Allied nations, already on high alert for Russian disinformation campaigns, immediately recognized this as part of a broader pattern of information warfare. Intelligence services began tracking the spread of the false information, mapping networks of influence, and identifying key amplifiers. What they discovered was disturbing. The fake announcement hadn't just appeared randomly, it had been strategically placed and amplified through a network of coordinated accounts. The lies spread through social media like a virus, with each share and retweet giving it more credibility. European leaders were quick to condemn the disinformation campaign. Several heads of state issued statements supporting King Charles and condemning the spread of false information about Allied leaders. It was a rare moment of unity in an increasingly divided world. Social media platforms found themselves once again in the spotlight, criticized for their inability to prevent the rapid spread of obviously false information. Twitter, Facebook, and other platforms eventually flagged and removed the false content, but not before it had been seen by millions of users worldwide. The incident highlighted the ongoing challenge of content moderation at scale. How do you stop a lie that's been crafted to look identical to the truth? The fake palace statement was so convincing that even experienced journalists initially struggled to identify it as fraudulent. This wasn't just a hoax about King Charles, it was a masterclass in modern disinformation warfare, and its implications extend far beyond the royal family. First, it showed how political tensions now play out in the digital realm. The attack on King Charles wasn't random. It was a calculated strike designed to sow chaos and uncertainty in a key Western ally during a period of international tension. By targeting the head of state during a vulnerable moment, his cancer treatment, the campaign maximized emotional impact and social media engagement. Second, it revealed the sophisticated techniques now available to bad actors. This wasn't a crude fake or an obviously false social media account. The fabricated palace statement was professionally crafted using authentic formatting, appropriate language, and even believable timing. It required significant resources and expertise to create. This was state-level disinformation, not amateur trolling. Third, it exposed our collective vulnerability to information manipulation. The hoax succeeded not because people were foolish, but because it exploited genuine emotions and concerns. People shared the false information not out of malice, but out of shock, sympathy, and a desire to stay informed about major news events. Perhaps most troubling of all, it highlighted how the modern information ecosystem can amplify lies faster than it can correct them. The supposed death of the United Kingdom's king was posted by one site, which later accepted that most likely the information is fake, but by then, the false information had already reached millions of people across multiple platforms and languages. This incident forces us to confront uncomfortable questions about the world we've created. In our rush to stay connected and informed, have we built systems that are more efficient at spreading lies than truths? And if a sophisticated disinformation campaign can successfully target the King of England, what hope do the rest of us have? The King Charles death hoax represents a turning point in the evolution of digital warfare, and its lessons will reshape how institutions, governments, and individuals approach information security in the years ahead. For the royal family, this incident has fundamentally changed their communication strategy. Palace officials are now working with cybersecurity experts to develop rapid response protocols for future disinformation attacks. They're investing in digital forensics capabilities and building relationships with social media platforms platforms to ensure faster fact-checking and content removal when similar situations arise. The British government, too, has taken note. Intelligence services are expanding their focus on information warfare, recognizing that attacks on national symbols and leaders can be just as destabilizing as traditional espionage or military action. Diplomatic missions worldwide now include counter-disinformation as a key part of their brief. The ripple effects are still being felt today. Social media platforms have been forced to confront their role as unwitting accomplices in spreading disinformation. They're experimenting with new verification systems, trying to find ways to authenticate official statements from government and royal sources before they can be replicated and distorted. News organizations worldwide are developing new protocols for verifying breaking news, especially when it originates from foreign sources or appears during periods of heightened tension. For all of us as digital citizens, this incident serves as a crucial reminder of the importance of media literacy. The techniques used in the King Charles hoax, sophisticated formatting, emotional manipulation, exploitation of timing, are becoming standard tools in the disinformation playbook. Recognizing these patterns and taking a moment to verify sensational claims before sharing them isn't just good digital citizenship, it's an act of civic responsibility. Looking ahead, we can expect disinformation campaigns to become even more sophisticated. Artificial intelligence will make it easier to create convincing fake documents, audio recordings, and even video content. The line between authentic and fabricated information will continue to blur, making critical thinking skills more valuable than ever. The King Charles death hoax may have been debunked within hours, but its impact will be felt for years to come. It's forced us to confront the reality that in our interconnected world, a lie can circle the globe in minutes, and the truth may never fully catch up. This story raises profound questions about the information age we're all living in. The King Charles death hoax shows us that we're all part of the information ecosystem now. Every share, every retweet, every forward contributes to what becomes common knowledge. That gives us power, but it also gives us responsibility. What strategies do you use to spot potential disinformation? Have you ever shared news that later turned out to be false? How do we balance staying informed with staying skeptical in an age where lies can look identical to truth? The best defense against disinformation isn't just technology or government intervention, it's an informed and thoughtful public that refuses to let lies spread unchallenged. Subscribe for more investigations into the stories that shape our world, where we separate the rumors from reality and explore what they reveal about the times we're living in. Because in an age of information warfare, understanding the battlefield isn't just interesting, it's essential. The truth is out there, but increasingly, we all have to work together to find it.